Hi guys, I'm Henry Holland. Welcome to my ceramics studio, which is what looks like today the Hackney Riviera in London. This is where I create all of my ceramics collections. I found this amazing open plan space just by chance when I was looking for a new studio space. And this one kind of is just perfect for what we need. We've got a gorgeous kitchen where we're able to display some of our work. We've got this lovely dining table, and then behind me is where the magic happens, and every single piece that we ship all over the world gets made here in this room by a team of about 7 makers, myself included, and every single piece is made by hand. So here's a few examples of some of our work. So the technique that we use is an ancient Japanese technique called Nerikomi, where we wedge together different coloured clays and then we glaze everything with a clear glaze. So you can see here, this is a piece made of white and terracotta clay. And I just sort of stumbled across this technique when I was trying to create something that felt bold and graphic and colourful in a way that I was used to achieving through digital print, I guess, with fabrics from my previous life as a fashion designer. And then also you've got some of the more colourful pieces here. So this is a green and a blue. You can really see the colours and the patterns play really nicely in those colours there. Okay, so this is where the magic happens. These are our making tables. Once everything gets made, it comes onto these shelves. We cover the shelves with this plastic to slow down the pieces from drying, because if they dry too quickly, then everything cracks and we have to remake it. This is Emily. Once everything gets made, everything has to be sanded, which is in this corner here. The sanding process really brings out the patterns again. You can see on this vase here, this is a piece that hasn't yet been sanded. So it's a little bit smudgy and the pattern isn't very bold and crisp. And then once it's been sanded, it will look something more like this. So you really bring out the white clay and the kind of contrast between the colours in the piece. And fun story about the vases, I was working so much in the studio in the evenings that my husband thought I was having an affair. So I named all of the vases after very famous affairs. This particular vase is named after my childhood home, figure that one out. And then this vase is called the Tudor, after Henry VIII, because we thought it was very important to not name the affairs after the women in the relationships, because therefore it was sort of implying that they were at fault. So we named after the men in the situation. And then we also have the Profumo, which is probably one of the most famous affair names going. And then moving over here, one of the most important parts of the process is when we fire all of the pieces. And that is in these babies here. This is Janice, and this is Stan. So that is our way of differentiating between the two kilns, and we talk to them like people. They're very important. We say a little prayer before we put things in them, because you never know what they're going to do when they fire to like just over 1,000 degrees, so quite a lot can happen in the kilns. And then once the pieces have been through the kilns, they then come out as what's called bisqueware. So then they've got their robustness, and they've been fired to a certain temperature, so they're hard and they're less porous from the water. So Janice and Stan tend to do the same thing. So sometimes they'll fire to a bisque, and sometimes they'll fire to a glaze. So over here, we've got some pieces which are glazed. So when we glaze all of our pieces, it goes on this putrid green colour, which is also the exact same colour as my school shirt. So it gives me really bad bullying flashbacks. But then once it's fired, that crazy green colour completely disappears, and then it comes out with this really shiny, high gloss, clear glaze. And then you get the colours of the pattern of the clays as well. So then once all of those processes have been done, this is where the pieces wait to get packed before we send them off to all of our amazing stockists or all of our customers. And so you kind of really get a feel for what the pieces will look like when you mix them together. So this is one of our blue and brown pieces, which is really nice and bold. And then one of our blue and white bowls as well. Okay, enough talking. Why don't I make something and you can watch the process, and I can prove that I do actually make stuff. So the reason I started working in ceramics was really just a very fortuitous timing thing. My fashion business was sold off and I was kind of trying to figure out what my next steps were going to be and what I was going to do next. And I had some ceramic lessons in the evenings before the pandemic, just as a creative outlet really, and just something to kind of give my creative brain something to do. And then when the pandemic intensified and I wasn't allowed to have my lessons anymore, I started making things in the kitchen, and the rest is history. So I've been here now doing this for nearly a year, and it's so fulfilling and it's so exciting, and it just really kind of reinvigorated my love of making things. So it's very much taking it back, and it's very cathartic, and it's very therapeutic. What inspires me the most is people. I just make things that I love, and I make things for certain people that I think are just going to really treasure the pieces. They're fun, they're playful, they're bold. Quite obnoxious is a word that I used to use, but also really covetable and desirable. And I sort of see the customers as having those same characteristics. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I make a small bowl. So now we've made our block with the pattern included with the coloured clay. We then use rolling guides to just use a wire cutter and slice a slab from the bottom. So that gives us our piece here. And then using another set of rolling guides, this time thinner, I'm going to roll the piece. And it's important to roll on both sides of the clay, so keep turning it. But it's also important to roll in both directions as well. So then once we've got the slab, which is at the right thickness all the way through, we have these amazing little plaster molds, which basically are all of the shapes of our bowls, look like little mushrooms. I'm going to take the slab, place it on my mold here. And then using a dry sponge, what I do is just go down and smooth off this slab until it's fully covering. And you just slowly tease the clay around to the shape of the bowl. If you go too quick in this process, then the clay will crease at the sides. Once we've got it smoothed down to the shape of the bowl, I'm just going to go over it with what we call metal kidney and just smooth all of this off. And then I'm going to trim off the excess with a wet knife. So following the line of the mold as smooth as I can, and then I'm going to use this excess to create the base of the bowl in a second. But then I'm going to get a wet sponge and smooth off the edges like that. Then using just a cookie cutter that people would probably use to make scones, we then just cut a circle from that excess that we've cut off on the edges, and this will then become our foot for the bowl. So then the all important bit, adding the Henry Holland branding, and then we use what's called slipping and scoring. We score the underside of the clay here. This just allows the water to get in and form an airtight kind of seal. We like everything a little bit wonky. It really shows everything is handmade, and you know, nothing is sort of too formulaic. So we sort of just using our eyes, we just select where is the center of the bowl, but everybody loves a wobbly bowl, right? And then just using some water and a brush, and then the same on the bowl itself. And then I'm going to place the foot. And then using something flat, we just press down on that base to get rid of any air between those two pieces. That way you know it's definitely sealed. And then using a tool, I'm just going to go around and clean that edge. And then with a wet sponge, just go around and clean that. Okay, and then it's time to very gently release the bowl from the mould. And voila, a small green and white bowl. So I've just shown you how we create our more organic pattern, and our new collection is this really beautiful checkerboard inspired from my mum's collection of 1950s French Czech pottery. Comes in the same colours because obviously we're working with a natural materials. It's actually a very good way of keeping me in check, because in fashion, when I had the entire spectrum of colours to work from, I really went for it, as you may or may not know. So that's it. Thank you so much for coming to my studio and seeing where we work. I hope you learned more about ceramics than you knew before. Hopefully not too much, because you'll still need to buy mine, right? It's been really nice to have you, but now it's time to go make some pots. So